Go. All right, Craft House, quite a crowd. Not only will I make you drink, but you'll want to do drugs after I'm done.
What about before?
So, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and in Brooklyn, Italian neighborhoods and Jewish neighborhoods are adjacent. So you grow up with people, that are outside of your community, and you make friends with different groups of people. But those neighborhoods were the safest neighborhoods around. You walked out of the house and windows opened up and down the blocks. All the nonas and the boobies sticking their heads out the window to see what was going on. And you would hear things like, "Where you going? You going out? What's your mother got to say about that? Who's the red-headed kid? He must be Irish. He doesn't belong in our neighborhood." This was basically Homeland Security in the 60s. And if guilt was a competitive sport, our moms would be Olympic athletes. The Italian moms, "After all I do for you, you're going out with your friends?" And of course, the Jewish moms, "Don't worry, I'll just sit here in the dark and wait to die." Now, as a kid, my lunchbox included things that other kids didn't have. I had real silverware, I had linen napkins, I had a little tiny wine glass, and I had 6 extra meatball sandwiches I used to sell to the Jewish kids to make extra money. We had, Italians have a big Christmas Eve fish dinner. It's called the Feast of the Seven Fishes. So my friends were always curious about it, like I was curious about their holidays, and I would invite them over for the Feast of the Seven Fishes. Well, my buddy Ira knows to never come to an Italian household empty-handed. So he walks in and he's got a bag, and he walks into the kitchen and he walks up to my nonna and he said to her, "Merry Christmas." She reaches in the bag and takes out a jar of gefilte fish. She's cooking Italian dishes for 2 days. He shows up with gefilte fish. And he said, "Well, you said it was the Feast of the Seven Fishes, right?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Well, this is fish number 8, the Kobe Bryant of fish." It was okay with Nona. She thought he was a little crazy. She looked at me and she said, "This is a kid, he's in a little box," which is crazy in Italian. And she was okay with it until he broke into a rendition of "Dreidel, Dreidel, Dreidel" and tried to dance with her around the kitchen. I thought this whole aging thing would take longer. I would much rather be dealing with acne than arthritis. It's so bad. I went to the doctor and I said, "Listen, my knees hurt, my hips hurt, my neck is shot, my hands, I can't hold anything." He goes, "Well, it's arthritis." He says, "I could give you medication." He said, "But arthritis makes everything stiff." Not everything. When I wake up, you'll say, look, I have trigger fingers. So when I wake up, it looks like I'm flashing gang signs. I used to love getting high when I was younger. I'd smoke a joint. I'd put on some Led Zeppelin and we would just chill out. Now, at this point in my life, if I want to get a buzz, I just stand up real quick and I let the blood pressure take over. You're all too young to be on blood pressure meds. I wasn't talking to you. Now drinking hits really differently as you get older. I get a 3-day hangover from a blueberry smoothie. That's why I'm drinking a Diet Coke now. I go in the bathroom now and it takes me much longer to start going than to actually go. I actually lose my train of thought. And when I do start going, it's sort of like these urinary dots and dashes. It's like Morse code. Ships at sea send their messages. There's 4 rules to aging. Write them down because you'll need them. Never trust not you. I'm talking to the entire crowd of 3 at the bar. So,
how old do you think I am?
You're 27.
I wish. I'm 40.
God bless.
Wow.
God bless.
Looking good.
So the 4 rules of aging: never pass up a bathroom, you never trust a fart, you never waste an erection, and 4, most importantly, never get on the floor without a plan to get back up.
That's true.
2 bonus guidelines: mandatory naps daily, and no shoes with laces. I play a new game for seniors. I like to call it nap roulette. I take a nap, I don't set an alarm. It could be anywhere from 20 minutes to 4 hours. I don't know. I'm a risk taker. You know you're getting old when your balls are longer than a CVS receipt.
Wow, because they're like, this small. It's like, what is it?
She just had a visual.
You guys,
Just took that extra. So
Sorry.
you guys can see I got a few tattoos. So Pixie takes me to the tattoo place and I get a new tattoo and we're sitting out in the backyard and she looks and she goes, what is that? I said, what? She goes, the new tattoo. She said, why would you get lines tattooed above your knee? I said, well, you remember when the kids were little, we would draw a line on the door jamb. We would draw, right, to gauge their height, right, to see if they're growing. She said, well, why do you have the 3 lines above your knee? I said, well, I'm trying to measure the impact of gravity on my balls. She said, maybe I should separate the 2 ball jokes so you can't guess it in advance. And she says, why the dotted line? I said, because at that point, no more shorts. You know, menopause was a very interesting time for us. I like to call it the thermostat wars. She would make it so cold in the house because of the hot flashes that we would get intermittent flurries in the bedroom. You know, and I said to her, tell me what these hot flashes are like. She said, well, it's like an internal fire. I feel like I'm burning from the inside out. And I said, well, it's sort of like your body really remembered the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to you, and you're in full body blush. She didn't like that. You know, menopause for her became her own personal August and February. Her hot flashes were so intense, we would take her outside during a snowstorm and sit her in the driveway. The radiant heat melted all the snow, and we never had a shovel. Yeah, I'm in bed one night and I hear bzzz. Gets a little louder, a little stronger. Bzzz. I turn over already, and there she is with a little fan from her nightstand, just trying to cool herself off. I had a very different bzzz in mind. You know, for an Italian woman, menopause is just a reminder from Mother Nature that she's going to be dealing with facial hair for the rest of her life. And my Nona, at age 80, had such a luxurious beard, she was asked to front for a ZZ Top cover band. You know, Pixie and I have been married for 40 years now. And, yeah, thank you. Thanks. The only reason why I do this, it's the only place I can get 10 minutes of uninterrupted time.
Hey, listen, it's a good thing you're funny.
Well, it's a good thing I think I'm funny.
Well, it's a good thing she thinks you're funny.
Actually, but it's a good thing I made a good living.
Fair enough.
You know, maturing in marriage is accepting the fact that your wife can't remember where she left the glasses. But you can remember something I said 39 years ago on a Monday night at 8:57 p.m. You know, she'll have 50% of a conversation in her head before bringing me into it. And at that point, I'm always accused of never paying attention. And I must admit, I forget a lot of stuff that's just irrelevant to me. The only thing I do remember is the grudges. I like to call it Italian Alzheimer's. You know, we talk with our hands a lot. We're Italian, Pixie especially. Sometimes she looks like she's landing planes on an aircraft carrier. Well, Pixie broke her wrist a couple of years ago and she developed a speech impediment. She just stood there going, eh. I went to my dad when I was getting married and I said, hey, I want to make this marriage successful. Tell me what I need to know. He said, well, you need to know 2 words. Yes, dear. Which struck me as kind of curious because I'd never heard him say that to my mother. So I figure he's full of shit, and I go talk to my grandfather. And I said, no, tell me, what do I need to know to make my marriage successful? He says, well, this girl, she's Italian. I says, yeah. He goes, she's a Sicilian? I said, yeah. He goes, well, you can tell a lot about a Sicilian girl by the way she uses her hands. I said, how so? He goes, well, for instance, if her hands are wrapped around your throat, she's probably pissed off. You know, after 40 years, I don't even say yes, dear anymore. I just sort of nod and blink. It's basically become a hostage situation. You know, we learned that compromise is key to a successful marriage. We've mastered it, by the way. I say I'm wrong, and she agrees. Have you ever tried to win an argument with a spouse? It's adorable. You just can't. You run out of oxygen. The worst part is you end up apologizing for something that allegedly you said at Beefsteak Charlie's in 1996. And I apologize because, frankly, I like living indoors. You know the scariest words in any marriage? Any idea? I was thinking. No details, no bullet points, just sheer emotional terror. It's really not the beginning of a conversation. I know it's about to begin. The Inquisition. You know there's 4 stages of marriage?
No, there's 3.
No, there's 4.
There's 3.
All right,
The engagement ring, wedding ring, and the suffering.
yeah, well, okay, I'll give you that, but here's my 4. There's the newlywed stage, right? Everything is brand new. You wear out a mattress the first year you're married. You're going at it all the time. Newlywed stage is the best. The second stage is happy. The sex is frequent and the sex is good, but what do you get? What are you doing to mommy? We hear her screaming. I hear her yelling Yahtzee. We won in. Let us play too. The third stage is amused. You look at each other. You're feeling very amorous. You run to the bedroom. You rip your clothes off. And you just crack up laughing because gravity's a fickle bitch. And finally, there's that tolerance stage. All that playful banter of your youth has turned into a bit of bickering. You still have sex. I like to call it hallway sex. You just walk by each other and go, screw you. You know, vacation prep was always an interesting time for us. Pixie would get 12 new outfits and 6 new pairs of shoes. And I would pack the same 3 rock band t-shirts I had since the 70s and my New Balance kicks from 2002. I got one more joke. It's a street joke, but it's Pixie's favorite joke. So I was looking to make a little extra money, and I decide that I'm basically going to drive. Yeah, that's Pixie. I'm basically going to drive Uber to make a couple extra bucks. So I get the first call. I pull up in Sarasota, and it's a nun. Sister gets in the car, and we're driving, and I'm looking in the rear view at Sister. Sister's looking up at me, and I could see she's getting uncomfortable. And I said, Sister, why are you so uncomfortable? She goes, well, you keep staring at me. I said, well, I have to tell you, I'm a Catholic schoolboy, and I always had a fantasy about making up with a nun. Stay with me, it gets funny. So I pull over, I get in the back. Sister says, if you're single and you're Catholic, I'll make out with you. I said, lucky me, I'm both. So I get in the back, Sister and I are going at it. She's kissing me like a drunk girl on prom night. We finish up, I get in the front of the car, and we're driving away. And I said, Sister, I have a confession to make. I'm actually married and I'm Jewish. Sister replies, it's okay, sweetie, my name is Kevin and I'm on my way to a Halloween party. Thank you. All right, that's my time. Let's bring MJ back.